Well, another pre-season has come and gone, and there are plenty of question marks heading into season 2022 for the Cats. Hey there, Cats fans. Welcome back to another episode of The Hoop Show. My name is Ben Reeve. This is a channel dedicated to all things Geelong Cats. It's very one-eyed. It can be very overly optimistic at times about our chances. So for the next 10 or 15 minutes, enjoy, I guess. It's going to be all about the Cats, as I said. But before I get started, I just wanted to thank all those new subscribers that have joined to the channel in the last couple of weeks. It's been a big surprise. I've actually been pretty blown away by how many new people have come on board. So thank you very much. Really appreciate that. But without further ado, let's get on with the pre-season review. And we might start with just a quick look of some of the major stories kicking off in the AFL over the last week or so. The AFLW season came to an end on Sunday night. The Cats, unfortunately, didn't go too well. I think we finished the year 2-8. So that's a bit of a shame. But we'll move on, and hope we did show a lot of signs last year, or this year just gone, and let's hope that the next year is a lot better than this year. There's a couple of great players that come to mind: Amy McDonald and Preseason, two of our standouts. And nice to see Nina Morrison come back and get through the year uninjured. Every game that she goes into, I get a bit nervous thinking that this is going to be it. She's going to go down with a knee, so I'm really glad that she's pulled through uninjured out of that. But the finals are shaping up. Week one's looking like Brisbane and Collingwood, and then the other game is Kangaroos and Freo. So I'm not sure. I think probably I have my money on Brisbane to go back-to-back this year. I know they've started reasonably slowly, but they've finished the year quite strong, actually. I'd probably pick... I think it'll be probably an Adelaide, Brisbane. I know that's really boring, picking the same two grand finalists from last year, but I just think that's how it's going to go this time around. I think Adelaide was has been pretty impressive the whole year. So let's see what happens with that. That's where my money's on. Not that I'm betting on it, but I'm going on a Brisbane Adelaide grand final with Brisbane to take the chocolates in that one. There's been a lot of talk in AFL circles in the last few weeks about the possibility of Tasmania getting its own team. And years gone by, I think it's hasn't really been given a whole lot of time and attention and credibility, but it's starting to come together a little bit more now. I think the talk is that if it is going to happen, it will need sign-off by, I think it's about 75% of the presidents from the clubs. But if it is to go ahead, it's probably not likely to be before 2028. Who knows what the team will be called, where they'll be located. I'm guessing it'd be Hobart, but we'll wait and see on that one. I'd like to see a team get up there. I probably would like to see a team up in Northern Territory as well at some point. Also, some more talk. It seems like every year, doesn't it? There's more talk that we're going to have a nighttime or a twilight AFL Grand Final. We've had the last couple, I think. One at the Gabba was a night one, and Perth was twilight. Well, twilight over there, I guess, but for everyone else it was a similar start time. But let's see what happens this year, I guess. All going well, no pandemics and lockdowns and all that. It should be back at the MCG again, you'd imagine. So West Coast got some good news recently with Jack Darling deciding to get the jab in the end, but unfortunately, he avoided it for a while, but unfortunately he's done a foot injury now, so the report's coming out of the club that he'll be out for the next 4 weeks or so. A bit unfortunate for the West Coast Eagles there. Nothing seems to be going right for them at the moment, and most people have tipped them to be near the bottom of the ladder, anywhere from 18th to 14th, around that mark. And now Stewie Dew's probably getting a bit nervous at the moment, the coach of the Gold Coast Suns. He is in his last year of his contract up there, and the jungle drums are beating for a new coach. And the AFL, I'm sure, would be keen to have a look at who's available out there at the moment. And one guy who is available, this laughing lunatic here, Alistair Clarkson, he would probably love to coach the Tasmanian team, but I'm guessing the AFL, if there was a position opening up in the Gold Coast pretty soon, they'd be keen to get him in there. It's turning into a bit of a Gold Coast show this episode, but Ben King's decided to stay with the Gold Coast, which I think surprised a lot of people. I personally thought he was going to join his brother at a Victorian, at the Saints probably more likely, but if not that, at a Victorian club. So that's off the agenda, at least for a couple of years anyway. Now, Razor Ray, well, not about Razor Ray, but they've just been interesting to observe the new umpire abuse interpretation rules and how that's being applied. So a lot of outrage from a lot of fans and players about some of the 50-metre penalties that are going left, right and centre at the minute. I'm not too concerned about it, I guess. We'll wait and see. Give it a couple of weeks. There'll probably be some howlers in the first couple of weeks of the year, but it'll settle down a little bit as we go along. I'm interested in what's going to happen if COVID does run amok through a few clubs. There's lots of clubs at the moment getting ready or have gotten ready for some VFL, getting some VFL top-up players, or maybe not VFL, but from whatever local club or affiliates they have. So that'll be interesting to see. I haven't actually seen who we've got at the minute, but that'll be hopefully some VFL boys from our list that aren't playing with us, and interesting to see some other guys around the local leagues as well. There's been some changes to the AFL Channel 7 commentary team. Wayne Carey, poor old Wayne Carey, has finally been dumped, or not dumped from the whole team, but from the prime time Friday night slot. He won't be there anymore, so thank God for that. So I think we've got a few new faces there. Hodgie seems to be stepping up a little bit more. Daisy Pearce, maybe, well, I think she can probably do assistant coaching, or maybe she can't, assistant coach and commentator. We'll wait and see on that one. I don't know if there's too many. There's a few players that do both roles, but whether there's an assistant coach that can do that, that's an interesting one. And the last story of the week, it's not really a story. It's always a bit of a beat up every time a coach comes out of contract, and we've already talked about the Stewie G one, but old man sexy there, Chris Scott, he's in his last year of a contract due to expire soon. It does feel like a bit of a last year or a last dance for the club in many, many ways. A lot of our players, probably last chance to win a premiership. You say that, and then teams surprise you, though. So it happens every year. There's a team that just comes from nowhere or just drops off and doesn't fulfil their potential. So I think Chris and the club are probably just seeing how it's going to go, and maybe Chris is thinking about his options as well. All right, so let's have a look at some of the Twitter comments through the week. I did put out a question on Twitter about what our thoughts were on, or what our worries were, what our standouts from the preseason so far, and some predictions for the start of the year. And so Terry Howe says her worries are the ruck and the back line. We look terrible there, and there's in the preseason games. I think you're right, Terry. I've got a lot of questions about the back line, especially the ruck. Just seems to take care of itself. Or we don't tend to take it that seriously year after year. But the back line, I'm very concerned about how we're covering that with the loss of Henderson. And yeah, we're probably only going to remember the last couple of games in the finals, and that's a bit unfortunate that that's how we'll remember Henderson, but he was pretty solid for most of the year. So I think we're going to feel that in the regular season for sure. And Danny Ferrari at Ferrari D7 says he's also in agreement with Terry that Guthrie is a bit of a standout there, but his main worry is the talent gap from older players to youth, and the ruck and midfield setup. I know the age issue is going to be a big one this year. It is going to be an interesting year in terms of, are we at the end? Have we got enough petrol left to go again one more time? I think it's asking a lot to say, can we go two more times? But let's just look at this year. I think we do have enough left to go again. If everything goes well and there's no major injuries along the way, if we get decimated with injuries, I don't think we've got the luxury of depth like a lot of other clubs have. But if we get a good run of injuries and we can keep our good players in reasonable form, we're definitely going to be pushing for top four again. I've been crazy optimistic and picked the Cats to win 19 games and to have us either first or second on the ladder with that. There could be another team with 19 wins as well, but I've got them with 19. And that's, factoring in, past years. Yeah, I know we're getting older, but they prove us wrong every year. I'm one of those ones that says we're probably going to fall off a little bit, but this year I'm like, no, we every year we say that and they come good again. So who's to say they won't do it again this time around? Our next tweet is from Just One Man Against Fascism at Catman Forever. And he thinks that Holmes and Stevens are standing out as part of the future of the club. Not quite sold yet on DeConning, are you, Catman Forever? Not ready just yet, at least anyway, and we're going to be pretty average without Stewart. yeah, it's going to be tricky. If Stewart's not there round one, do you think his partner's got a baby on the way? I think, and yeah, the Ruckman issues there as well. Look, Sav, you'd all hope Sav could be a goal kicking Ruckman. Don't know if he reads the game that well. His hands aren't really solid enough yet. Those almost marks. It's still. I mean, it's only pre-season, but how good would it be? How he would almost be a completely different player overnight if he started clunking 3 or 4 of those marks a game. How much would that change the look of Geelong each week? So he's one of the ones that I'm really, really hoping can take that step, because I know it just changes the shape of our side so much if he does. So yeah, it's a wish list, but you can't argue with it. If we find something from the Big Rat, Geelong's going to be pretty hard to beat. It's just going to be really interesting to see how it plays. I know he's a big barometer. I'm really, really hoping he's going to be the man to do that 2011, the Tom Hawkins of 2011, hopefully earlier in the season in the last half of the grand final. But if Ratugolea can stand up for us, I think that's going to be amazing. The next tweet is from Tim McGrath at TMCG 1606. I don't think it's the same Tim McGrath who used to go toe-to-toe with Wayne Carey back in the day. But no, his concern is that our playing style doesn't look to have changed from last year. The slow chip rubbish, kicking rubbish that we've had in previous years, which has been effective in the regular season. You can't argue that because we've won a lot of games. Doesn't seem to stand up in the finals, though, under the intense pressure of the chaotic football that a lot of premiership teams tend to bring in recent years. I'm talking about the Richmonds and the Melbournes of the world. Probably works against a team like the Bulldogs. We seem to have a lot of trouble against them. Close games, but we often get across the line against the Doggies. But for the sake of the game, I'd like us to put to bed the chip sort of style. I'd like to, for poker terms, go all in this year. Actually, take a lot of risks, take some chances with, back our gun players. If it doesn't come off, it doesn't come off. I'd hate to finish this season dying wondering, knowing that we had all these guns, we had all these weapons that we just couldn't use them. We had 2 Coleman medalists up forward, and we had this chip style of football that just took forever to get down there. I know there's much more to the game. That's oversimplifying systems and structures, but I just think we've got to do something a bit different. We might have a small forward in Stengel, and 1 or 2 others might pop up as well. And if that clicks, and as I said earlier, if Sava can get some sticky fingers, take over your marks, it's going to be really interesting. I think the question remains about the midfield, about how that's all going to come together. And a few people have said we really need another person to stand up and to really take that next step. It'd be great if one of the young players could just absolutely shock the competition. And it could be Holmes, it could be someone like a Cooper Stevens or something like that, that just really blow the competition away and no one saw it coming. We really need that, like we had with Selwood. I know Selwood's a once-in-a-generation type player, but premiership teams need these surprise players that come from nowhere. They need 2 or 3 of them, and they need competition for spots for some of these guys that are on the fringes that just keep getting picked week in, week out. Dalhouse, I'm looking at you. I love you, and I love everyone, but Del, I think your time might be up. And the final tweet of the week is from a Yank on the Footy podcast, an American fellow who I've just having a bit of chat with recently. He's got a question about the renos that are going on at the GMHBA Stadium at the moment down the Gary Ablett Terrace end, and what that's going to do to the weather conditions, specifically the wind. How's that going to change the way we play at all, or our oppositions play? I guess we've got the luxury of training at the ground and seeing what it's like under those conditions. Interesting come game day, there'll be no crowd behind those goals either. I'm not sure. I think the crowd's going to be less as well, so that's going to have an impact on the noise at the ground. Not that we haven't really had much of a crowd at the games in the last couple of years anyway, but it's not going to be the fortress it has been 3 or 4 years ago. and hasn't been for the last couple of years as well, even though we've done reasonably well and made a grand final in that time too. So I'm curious to see how it's going. I was looking for some photos about how the construction's going, so if anyone's got any they can share. I always love to see these things come together. I'm sure the club will put together a fast, what do they call it, like a fast forward sort of slow, I can't remember, stop motion, whatever it's called. I think you know what I'm talking about. Some kind of video package of how it's all coming together at that end of the ground. It'll be great when it's done. Great to have the ground completed, and then probably another 20 years until we go again with some other upgrade when we can afford it again. Next Saturday at 2:10 we've got the Bombers at the MCG, first game of the year. It's one of those games you don't want to go into a little bit overly cocky about. We know what it was like last year with Adelaide. I was probably one that got a bit carried away with myself and thought just bank the 4 points, but Essendon, I'm nervous, but I am nervous about every game. I still think we'll win the game, and I think I'm quietly confident we'll win the first 4 games of this year and be positioned quite nicely heading into month number 2. Let's see how we go. I think it'll be a close game at the very least, and hopefully the weather conditions are nice. This time of year starting to get still quite warm, so hopefully it's a really nice Saturday afternoon game at the MCG and we can all get along, and let's get 70,000, 80,000 people there to the game and watch. Should be a classic. All right, thanks for watching again. We'll see you next Monday night, same time, same channel, and go Cats.